53 seconds. That's how long it took for Elowen Marlowe's heart to stop beating in the Montana wilderness at -22 degrees Fahrenheit. The medical examiner would later document it in cold clinical terms: cardiac arrest, 4 minutes and 47 seconds of clinical death. The kind of death that leaves permanent damage. The kind you don't come back from. But something in those mountains didn't let death claim her that night. Something ancient, something that had been waiting a very long time for a girl like Elowen to stumble into its territory, broken and bleeding and ready to give up. This is what happened 7 hours before her heart stopped. This is the night everything changed. December 21st, 2024. Winter solstice. The longest night of the year in Silvercrest territory, nestled deep in the misty mountain range of Montana. The grand ballroom of the Silvercrest Park House glittered like something out of a fairy tale. 3 massive crystal chandeliers hung from the vaulted ceiling, each one dripping with thousands of individual crystals that caught the firelight and threw rainbows across the polished marble floors. The walls were draped in silver silk, the pack's signature color, embroidered with crescent moon symbols that seemed to glow in the flickering light of 100 candles placed in ornate holders along every surface. 324 wolves had gathered for the ceremony. Alphas in tailored suits that cost more than most wolves earned in a year, their confidence radiating from every pore. Betas in designer dresses that sparkled under the chandelier lights, jewelry glinting at throats and wrists. Even the Omegas had been given their bestest uniforms for the occasion, though they were expected to serve, not celebrate. To be invisible, hands that kept champagne glasses full and hors d'oeuvres circulating. At the center of it all, standing in the shadows near the kitchen entrance, was Elowen Marlowe. 21 years old, 5 feet 4 inches tall, thin in a way that suggested too many missed meals rather than genetics. Her brown hair was pulled back in a simple braid that had started neat 6 hours ago, but was now coming loose, strands escaping to frame her face. She wore the standard Omega uniform, a plain grey dress that had been washed so many times the fabric had gone soft and thin. She held a cleaning cloth in her hands, though there was nothing left to clean. The ballroom was perfect. She'd spent the last 6 hours making sure of it, scrubbing every inch of marble until it gleamed, polishing every piece of silver until she could see her reflection in it. But she wasn't thinking about the cleaning. She was thinking about the man on the raised platform at the far end of the room. Thorn Greystone, 25 years old, 6 feet 2 inches of pure alpha genetics, dark hair that fell just perfectly across his forehead, eyes the color of glacial ice, cold and blue and piercing. He wore a black suit that probably cost more than Elowen had earned in her entire life, tailored to show off broad shoulders and narrow waist. Elowen had felt the pull toward him since she was 15 years old. Not the full mate bond her wolf had never manifested, but something deep in her chest had recognized him anyway. A faint tug, a whisper of maybe, of someday. She'd held on to that whisper for 6 years, through every cold look he'd given her, through every time he'd walked past her like she was invisible, through every cruel comment from the other Omegas about how pathetic it was that she thought an alpha like Thorn Greystone would ever look twice at a wolfless failure like her. "You know he can't even smell you, right?" Marisa, another Omega, had said just last week while they were folding laundry together. "Without a wolf, you don't have a scent. You're basically human to him." But Elowen had felt it. That pull, that connection, it had to mean something. Tonight, she told herself, tonight he takes the alpha oath. Tonight everything becomes official. And maybe, just maybe, he'll finally feel what I've been feeling all along. Elowen. The voice made her jump. She turned to find Mrs. Judith Holloway standing beside her, a tray of empty champagne glasses balanced in her weathered hands. 72 years old, white hair pulled back in a neat bun, eyes that had seen too much, and somehow still managed to be kind. Mrs. Judith had been an Omega in Silvercrest for 54 years, had served 3 different alphas, had buried 2 mates and raised 5 children, all of whom had left the pack for better opportunities elsewhere. "You're staring again, child," Mrs. Judith said quietly. Her voice was gentle, but there was something sad in it, something that made Elowen's stomach clench with worry. "I can't help it," Elowen whispered back. "Tonight's the night. When he takes the oath, maybe the bond will finally snap into place." Mrs. Judith was quiet for a long moment. Then she set down her tray and took Elowen's hand in both of hers. Her skin was papery and thin, marked with age spots and calluses. Her grip was surprisingly strong. "Listen to me, Elowen. Listen carefully, because I might not get another chance to tell you this." Mrs. Judith's grip tightened. "Your wolf isn't dead. I don't care what the pack doctor said when you were 5 years old. I don't care that you've never shifted. She's not dead. She's sleeping, waiting." "But she's not waiting for him." Elowen frowned. "What do you mean I felt the pull since I was 15? That has to mean something." "It means you have a kind heart and you want it to belong somewhere." Mrs. Judith glanced toward the platform where Thorn stood. "But that man up there, he doesn't have a kind bone in his body. I have watched him grow up, Elowen. I have seen what he does when he thinks no one's looking." "He's never been cruel to me," Elowen protested weakly. "No, he's been worse. He's been indifferent." Mrs. Judith's grip tightened even more. "And if things go wrong tonight, and I think they will if they cast you out, you remember what I'm about to tell you. Cast me out. Why would they? North Elowen, not south, not east, not west. If you run north. Into the Blackwood forest. You understand me? The Blackwood remembers. It protects those who've been wronged." Before Elowen could ask what that meant, a bell chimed. 3 clear notes that echoed through the ballroom. Conversation died instantly. Every wolf in the room turned toward the platform. Alpha Harrison Greystone stepped forward. 58 years old, built like a bear with the kind of presence that made everyone in the room stand a little straighter. He'd ruled Silvercrest for 33 years, built it into the wealthiest pack in Montana. 847 wolves called him Alpha. Tonight, he was passing that title to his son. "Brothers and sisters of Silvercrest," Harrison's voice boomed out, "we gather on this winter solstice to witness the transfer of power. A tradition as old as the wolves themselves. When I took this oath 33 years ago, I swore to protect this pack, to make us strong, to never tolerate weakness." He paused. "Never tolerate weakness." It was Silvercrest's unofficial motto. Tonight my son takes that same oath, and I know he will lead us into an era of even greater strength. An era where Silvercrest doesn't just prosper, we dominate. A ripple of approval went through the crowd. Heads nodded. A few alphas clapped. Harrison turned to Thorn, who stepped forward to kneel on the platform. "Thorn Greystone, do you swear to lead this pack with strength and honor, to protect the strong and remove the weak, to uphold the laws that have kept us prosperous?" "I swear it." Thorn's voice was clear and strong. Alpha voice, the kind that made something deep in every wolf's chest respond instinctively. "Do you swear to defend our territory against all threats, to expand our influence, to ensure that Silvercrest remains the most powerful pack in Montana?" "I swear it." "Do you swear to produce strong heirs, to choose a mate whose bloodlines will strengthen our pack, to reject any bond that would weaken our genetic legacy?" Elowen's breath caught. That last part wasn't traditional. "I swear it," Thorn said, his voice even stronger. "Then by the authority given to me by the Moon Goddess and the North American Council, I name you Alpha of Silvercrest Pack. Rise, Alpha Thorn." Thorn stood. The moment he did, something rippled through the room. A shift in the air, the sensation of power changing hands. The pack erupted into applause. Cheers and howls filled the ballroom. Thorn raised his hand and immediately the noise cut off. That was Alpha authority, the ability to command silence with a gesture. "Thank you, Father. Thank you, all of you." Thorn's cold blue eyes swept across the room. "My first act as Alpha is to reaffirm our commitment to strength. Silvercrest has prospered because we do not accept weakness. We do not make excuses for failure. We do not carry dead weight. Elowen felt something cold slide down her spine. Which brings me to an important announcement, Thorn continued. Tonight we have among us a wolf who has lived in this pack house for 21 years. A wolf who was told her wolf was simply dormant. That someday she would shift. No, Elowen's hands started to shake. But that day never came, and it never will. Thorn's eyes locked onto her. Elowen Marlowe, step forward. The crowd parted. 324 wolves turned to stare. Elowen couldn't move. I said step forward, Omega. The command made her body obey. She walked forward on numb legs. The marble stretched forever. She reached the platform. 6 years ago, Thorn said, this Omega began harboring a delusion. She convinced herself that she felt a mate bond with me. That somehow, despite being wolfless, despite being genetically inferior, the moon goddess had paired her with an alpha. Gasps rippled through the crowd, then snickers, then laughter. Elowen's face burned. I felt something. I thought. You thought wrong. Thorn's voice cut through her stammering. The moon goddess does make mistakes occasionally. But I have the strength to correct them. He turned to Seraphine Grayson, 23 years old, the beta's daughter. Platinum blonde hair in perfect waves, emerald eyes, crimson dress. This, Thorn said, pulling Seraphine close, is perfection. Beauty, strength, loyalty, intelligence. Everything a Luna should be. He looked back at Elowen. You, Elowen Marlowe, are the opposite. A cautionary tale. A reminder of what happens when weak bloodlines persist. Elowen's chest felt crushed. Please, Thorn, please, I felt the bond. It means your mind is as defective as your genetics. He raised his voice. I, Alpha Thorn Greystone, reject you. Elowen Marlowe as my mate and Luna. In your place, I choose Seraphine Grayson, whose bloodlines are worthy of leading beside me. The pain hit like a physical blow. It started in her chest and exploded outward. The bond she'd felt for 6 years suddenly snapped. The severed ends lashed back at her. Elowen screamed. Her knees buckled. She hit the marble floor hard. The laughter got louder. 324 wolves watching her writhe on the ground. Pathetic. Seraphine's voice rang out. She's delusional on top of being useless. Thorn crouched down. His voice dropped to a volume only she could hear. Did you really think I'd mate with you? I've known about your delusion for years. It was amusing. But now I'm Alpha. Weakness has no place in Silvercrest. He stood. Elowen Marlowe, you are hereby banished from Silvercrest territory. You have 1 hour to cross the western border. After that, you will be classified as rogue. Kill on sight. Alpha, one of the warriors spoke up. It's negative 22 degrees outside. Blizzard warning. She doesn't have a wolf. She'll die. That's not my problem. Natural selection. 2 warriors grabbed her arms. Wait, Elowen gasped. Just let me get my coat. No, you came into this world with nothing. You leave with nothing. He nodded to a female warrior. Remove her pack necklace. Sarah stepped forward. She unclasped the silver pendant. I'm sorry, she whispered. Take her out through the service entrance. They dragged her through the crowd. As they passed Mrs. Judith, the old woman mouthed one word, north. Then Elowen was through the ballroom, down the hallway, past the kitchens. The back door loomed ahead. One of the warriors unlocked it. The other pushed it open. The blizzard hit like a living thing. Wind so strong it nearly knocked her off her feet. Snow so thick she couldn't see. And the cold, negative 22 degrees. She wore a thin grey dress. No coat, no shoes. The warriors shoved her forward. She stumbled into snow that came up to her knees. Behind her, the door slammed shut. Then she was alone in a blizzard, in the worst cold Montana had seen in a decade, with no wolf to keep her warm. North, Mrs. Judith had said. West was 9 miles. She'd die in 2. North was the Blackwood Forest, 4 miles away, the forbidden zone. But 4 miles was better than 9. Elowen started walking north, into the storm, into what would almost certainly be her death. The first 15 minutes weren't so bad. Adrenaline kept her moving. She focused on putting a one foot in front of the other. The snow was 28 inches deep. Every step required her to lift her leg almost to her waist, then plunge it back down. Within 10 minutes, her legs were screaming. Within 15, they'd gone numb. The cold was aggressive. It found every gap in her dress, every patch of exposed skin, and attacked. Her body temperature began its deadly descent, 98.6 degrees at the start. Within 15 minutes, it had dropped to 95 degrees. Mild hypothermia. Her body started shivering violently. By 30 minutes, she'd reached 91 degrees. Moderate hypothermia. The shivering intensified. Her movements became clumsy. At 45 minutes, her core temperature hit 87 degrees. Severe hypothermia. The shivering stopped completely. Not because she was warming up, but because her body was conserving what little energy remained for vital organs. Her vision started to blur. The edges went gray, then dark. She was looking at the world through a shrinking tunnel. She thought she'd covered maybe 2 miles. The blizzard made everything look the same, but she should be getting close to the tree line. Except she couldn't see anything. Just white. Just endless killing white. Her foot caught on something. A root. A rock. She went down hard, face first into the snow. She tried to push herself up, but her arms wouldn't cooperate. She lay there, cheek pressed against frozen ground. The snow started to cover her immediately. Distantly through the fog filling her mind, Elowen thought about Thorn. About the 6 years she'd wasted hoping he'd see her. About how he'd looked at her tonight with nothing but disgust. Maybe he was right. Maybe she was weak. No. Some part of her deep down rebelled. She wasn't weak. She was kind. There was a difference. But brave didn't keep you warm. She closed her eyes, just for a moment. She didn't open them again. Her pulse dropped. 38 beats per minute. Then 35. 31. At exactly 11:47 p.m., 4 minutes and 32 seconds before midnight on the winter solstice, Elowen Marlowe's heart stopped beating. Clinical death. Except something in the Blackwood forest heard it. Heard the moment her heart went silent. And that something started moving through the trees faster than anything that size should be able to move. The blizzard covered Elowen's body in snow. Within minutes, she was just a white mound. The wind howled. The temperature dropped another 2 degrees. -24 now. Then the wind changed. The snow rippled. Something massive was moving through it. 2 golden eyes appeared in the darkness, not reflecting light, generating it, glowing like molten metal. They were 6 feet off the ground. Impossible for any wolf. A shape emerged from the storm, black on white. A wolf, but massive. 9 feet from nose to tail. 520 pounds. Fur so black it seemed to absorb light. The creature approached Elowen's snow-covered form. It circled her once, sniffing. Then it lowered its massive head and used its muzzle to brush away the snow covering her face. Her skin was blue-gray. Her lips were white. No breath fogged the air. No pulse beat at her throat. The wolf went absolutely still. For a long moment, it just stared at her. Then something happened that shouldn't be possible. The air around the wolf began to shimmer. The massive body began to shrink, to compress, to reshape itself. Fur retracted. Bones cracked and reformed. In less than 10 seconds, where a giant wolf had stood, a man now knelt in the snow. He was huge, even in human form. 6 feet 5 inches tall, 240 pounds of muscle and scars. Dark hair fell to his shoulders, wet with melted snow. His face was all sharp angles and hard lines, with 3 parallel scars running from his left temple down to his jaw. Claw marks, old, but his eyes were the same, that same molten gold. He was also completely naked, kneeling in -24 degree snow, and didn't seem to care. His body temperature ran hot. 107 degrees when shifted. Even in human form, he maintained 101. His name was Kyle Ravencroft, 28 years old, former alpha of Shadow Peak Pack, exiled 7 years ago for crimes he didn't commit, living alone in the Blackwood ever since. He should have let her die. That would have been the smart thing. He didn't know her anything. But his wolf had recognized something the moment it caught her scent on the wind, had howled one word into his mind with absolute certainty: mate. Not a maybe. The real thing, the soul-deep recognition that happened maybe once in 1,000 wolves. Kyle pressed 2 fingers to her throat. No pulse. He lowered his ear to her chest. No heartbeat. She was dead. Had been for approximately 4 minutes. 4 minutes was the threshold. After 4 minutes without oxygen, brain damage became permanent. After 6 minutes, death became irreversible. He had 2 minutes. Maybe. Kyle tilted her head back, pinched her nose and breathed into her mouth. Once, twice, 3 times, forcing air into lungs that had forgotten how to pull it in. Then he placed both hands on her chest, interlaced his fingers, and started compressions. Hard and fast. 100 compressions per minute. 30 compressions. 2 breaths. 30 compressions. 2 breaths. Nothing. No response. He kept going. His hands moved automatically. Muscle memory. Come on, little wolf. Don't do this. 1 minute passed. 2 minutes. 3. At 4 minutes exactly, Kyle felt something. A flutter under his hands, so faint he almost missed it. A heartbeat. He immediately gave 2 more breaths, felt her chest rise slightly on its own. Another heartbeat, stronger this time. Kyle sat back, breathing hard, watching. Elowen's chest rose, fell, rose again. Her heartbeat steadied, still weak but there. Alive. He needed to get her warm, fast. Her core temperature was probably around 85 degrees. She needed heat, shelter. Kyle looked around. His cabin was 4.8 miles north-northeast. He could make it in wolf form in 15 minutes if he ran flat out. He made a decision, shifted back to wolf form in less than 5 seconds. Then he carefully lifted Elowen's unconscious body with his jaws gripping her dress between his teeth. Then Kyle Ravencroft ran. He moved through the forest like a shadow, paws barely touching the snow. Trees blurred past. The blizzard didn't slow him down. He knew these woods, had walked every inch of them over 7 years. Elowen's body hung limp in his jaws, but she was breathing. He could feel it. 15 minutes later, he burst out of the trees into a small clearing. His cabin sat in the center, 14 feet by 18 feet. Solid logs, stone foundation, chimney made of river rock, solar panels on the roof. Kyle had built it himself over 7 years. Built it to last. Built it to be a home. He hit the front door at full speed. It wasn't locked. The interior was simple but comfortable. Main room with a stone fireplace. Kitchen area with a propane stove and hand pump sink. Bedroom separated by a heavy curtain. Bathroom with a composting toilet and gravity-fed shower. And everywhere books. Shelves lined the wall packed with volumes. History, science, philosophy, fiction. Reading was how he kept his mind from going feral. The fire had burned down to coals. Kyle shifted back to human lay, Elowen on the fur rug in front of the fireplace, and immediately started building the fire back up. He threw on 3 logs, arranged kindling, and used a fire starter. Within 2 minutes, flames were crackling. But it wasn't enough. She needed more heat, direct heat. Kyle grabbed the heavy quilt from his bed and wrapped it around her. Then he lay down beside her, pulled her against his chest, and wrapped his arms around her. His body temperature of 101 degrees immediately started transferring to her. He held her like that for an hour, feeling her core temperature slowly rise. 87 degrees, 90 degrees, 93. At 95 degrees, she started to shiver again. That was a good sign. At 96 degrees, her breathing deepened. At 97 degrees, her eyes moved behind closed lids. REM sleep. Dreaming. Kyle finally allowed himself to relax. She was going to live. The next 24 hours would be rough. Frostbite damage. Possible pneumonia. But she'd survive. His wolf didn't care about questions. His wolf only cared about one thing. Mate. 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 Kyle closed his eyes. Tomorrow he'd figure out what to do. Tonight he just held her, kept her warm, kept her alive. Outside the blizzard raged on. Inside the cabin, two souls who should never have met lay tangled together in front of a fire, one heartbeat gradually sinking with the other. And in Silvercrest Pack House, 4.8 miles to the south, AlphaKing. Greystone raised the glass of champagne and toasted his new reign, completely unaware that the Omega he'd sentenced to death had just become the most dangerous threat he would ever face. Morning came slowly to the Blackwood forest, dawn breaking reluctantly over the snow-covered landscape like the world was hesitant to face another day. The blizzard had finally blown itself out sometime around 4 a.m., leaving behind a world buried under 3 feet of fresh snow that sparkled like diamond dust in the pale winter sunlight. Sunlight filtered through the frost-covered windows of Kyle's cabin, casting pale geometric shadows across the wooden floor, painting everything in shades of gold and white. Elowen woke to the smell of cedar and wood smoke. And something else, something that made every cell in her body sit up and pay attention even before her conscious mind fully engaged. Sandalwood and ozone and rain-soaked earth. A scent that shouldn't have been comforting but somehow was. A scent that felt like home, even though she'd never smelled it before in her life. Her eyes opened slowly, reluctantly, like her body wasn't sure it wanted to rejoin the waking world. She was staring at a ceiling made of rough-hewn logs, chinked with grey mortar that had been expertly applied. Not the white plaster ceiling of her room in the servants' quarters at Silvercrest. Not the water-stained tiles she'd stared at every morning for 21 years. Somewhere else. Somewhere unfamiliar. Somewhere that smelled like safety. She tried to sit up. Her body screamed in protest, every muscle fiber seeming to tear. Everything hurt. Her fingers throbbed with a deep burning ache that pulsed with her heartbeat. Her toes felt like someone had taken a hammer to them, each one individually. Her chest felt bruised and tender, like she'd been punched repeatedly. Even breathing hurt. And there was something else. A warmth in her chest that hadn't been there before. Not the pain of the rejected bond that was still there. A dull ache like a healing wound, but something different. Something new, like a pilot light that had just been ignited. Small but growing, steady, certain. Don't move. The voice came from her left, deep and rough like gravel in a riverbed. The kind of voice that sounded like it wasn't used often, like it had forgotten how to form casual words. Command in it, but not the cruel kind like Thorn's. The practical kind. The voice of someone who expected to be obeyed because he was usually right, not because he demanded submission. Elowen turned her head slowly, carefully. Even that small movement made her dizzy. A man stood at the kitchen counter, his back to her. Tall. Very tall. 6.5 feet at least. Shoulders that seemed to span the width of the doorway. Muscles visible even through the black thermal shirt he wore. Dark hair fell past his shoulders, tied back with a leather cord. Even from behind he radiated controlled power, the way a loaded gun radiated danger even when it wasn't pointed at anyone. Where her voice came out as a croak, her throat felt like she'd swallowed broken glass. Don't talk yet either. The man turned, carrying a wooden bowl, carved from a single piece of pine. Steam rose from it, carrying the scent of beef and herbs. Elowen got her first look at his face and immediately understood why his voice sounded like it wasn't used often. This was not a man who smiled, not a man who engaged in casual conversation. Sharp features, high cheekbones that could cut glass, a jaw that looked like it had been carved from granite. But it was the scars that drew her attention. 3 parallel lines, obviously claw marks, running from his left temple all the way down to his jaw. Old scars. Healed white against skin that had seen a lot of sun and weather. And his eyes, Gold, not brown with gold flakes, not hazel. Actual metallic gold, like someone had melted down coins and poured them into his eye sockets. Those eyes studied her with an intensity that made her want to pull the blanket over her head. Clinical assessment, checking vitals, looking for signs of deterioration or improvement. You've been unconscious for 9 hours, he said, moving toward her with surprising grace for someone his size. He knelt beside the fur rug where she lay, setting the bowl down carefully. Your core temperature dropped to approximately 85 degrees Fahrenheit. You experienced cardiac arrest for 4 minutes and 47 seconds. I performed CPR in the field. Your heart restarted. You're lucky to be alive. Luckier still to have no apparent brain damage from the oxygen deprivation. He recited the facts like he was reading from a medical chart. No emotion, no warmth. Just information delivered with clinical precision. You have a stage 2 frostbite on 7 fingers and 9 toes. You'll keep them all, which is fortunate, but the nerve damage means you'll have reduced sensation and mobility for several weeks. Possibly permanent tingling in the affected areas. You likely have mild pneumonia, developing in your right lung based on the congestion I can hear when you breathe. You'll need antibiotics if it worsens, which I don't have. So we'll have to monitor it closely. He picked up the bowl, testing the temperature against his wrist. This is bone broth, beef, made it yesterday from marrow bones. It's warm, not hot, because your digestive system has been dormant and needs to restart gradually. You need to drink it. Your body's been in survival mode, shutting down non-essential functions. You're severely dehydrated and your blood sugar is dangerously low. This will help with both. Elowen stared at him, her mind trying to process everything he just said. But it kept getting stuck on one detail. You saved me. Yes. Why? Something flickered in those gold eyes, too fast to read. Emotion quickly suppressed. Because I don't let living things die on my land. Not if I can prevent it. Now drink. He held the bowl to her lips with surprising gentleness for someone so large. Elowen tried to take it from him, tried to hold it herself, but her hands shook so badly she nearly dropped it. The bandages wrapped around her fingers made gripping difficult. Without comment, without any sign of impatience, the man cupped one hand behind her head, supporting it carefully, and held the bowl steady with the other. The broth was rich and salty, and exactly what her body needed. She could feel it hitting her stomach, spreading warmth through her core. After the 4th sip, her stomach cramped, rebelling against the sudden input. After the 8th sip, it settled, accepting the nourishment. By the time she'd finished half the bowl, she felt almost human again. The man set the bowl aside on the hearth. Better? She nodded, swallowing. Her throat felt less raw now. What's your name? He was quiet for a long moment, long enough that she thought he might not answer. Then, finally, Kyle. Kyle Ravencroft. The name hit her like a physical blow. Elowen's eyes went wide, her breathing quickened. She tried to scramble backward away from him, but her body wouldn't cooperate. She only managed to tangle herself in the blanket. You're the godless, she whispered, horror and disbelief and terror all mixed together in her voice. You're the one who killed them, Shadow Peak Pack, 87 wolves. You slaughtered your own pack. You went mad and murdered everyone. They found you covered in their blood. That's what the history books say. That's what everyone knows. Kyle's face didn't change. He just looked at her with those unsettling gold eyes, patient and still. Is that what they teach now? Everyone knows. It's history. 7 years ago, you went mad. Some kind of alpha psychosis. You turned on your own pack and murdered them in a single night. The council found you covered in their blood, standing over the bodies. They convicted you of genocide. They exiled you instead of executing you because... She trailed off, realizing she didn't actually know why he'd been exiled instead of killed. Because they needed a scapegoat, not a martyr. Kyle finished quietly, his voice heavy with something that might have been bitterness. A public execution would have drawn attention, would have meant investigations. Someone might have looked deeper, might have asked questions about who benefited from Shadow Peak's destruction. Easier to make me disappear into the Blackwood. Let me become a ghost story. The godless, the mad alpha who killed his pack, a cautionary tale. He stood up, moved to a trunk against the wall and pulled out a waterproof document box, military grade, sealed against moisture and time. You're going to tell me something first though. Who are you? What pack? And why were you dying in a blizzard, wearing nothing but a thin dress? Elowen pulled the blanket tighter around herself, suddenly very aware that she was wearing someone else's clothes under it. Someone Kyle had changed her out of her wet dress while she was unconscious. I was Elowen Marlowe, Silvercrest Pack, and I was dying because my alpha banished me. Kyle went very still, the kind of stillness that predators have right before they strike. Silvercrest, Thorn Greystone is alpha now. As of last night, the ceremony was... Her voice broke. The memory crashed over her like a wave. The ballroom, the platform, the rejection, the laughter. The ceremony was his first act as alpha. He rejected me in front of the entire pack, called me weak and genetically inferior and a cautionary tale. Then he had me thrown out with no coat, no shoes, nothing. Told the warriors I was rogue. Kill on sight after 1 hour. Kyle's jaw tightened, just slightly. The only sign of emotion he'd shown, a muscle thickening beneath the skin. You're Omega, wolfless Omega. I never shifted. The pack doctor said my wolf died in utero when my mother was pregnant with me. Some kind of genetic defect. My mother died in childbirth, probably because of me, and I never developed properly. She looked down at her bandaged hands. For 6 years, I thought I felt a mate bond with Thorn. I thought maybe when he became alpha, when the power settled on him fully, it would snap into place. But instead, he rejected me, chose the beta's daughter, said the moon goddess made a mistake pairing us. The moon goddess doesn't make mistakes, Kyle said flatly. He opened the document box and began spreading papers on the floor between them. Dozens of documents, official-looking papers with seals and signatures. But she pairs wolves for reasons beyond their understanding sometimes. If you felt a pull toward Greystone, it wasn't a mate bond. It was likely a warning, your instincts trying to tell you he was a threat, that you needed to be aware of him. Elowen frowned, trying to process this. A warning, but it felt like recognition, like he was important. He was important, just not in the way you thought. Kyle sorted through the documents, selecting specific ones with practiced efficiency. I'm going to tell you something. You won't want to believe it. You'll think I'm lying, that I'm trying to manipulate you or turn you against your pack. But it's the truth, and after I show you the evidence, you'll understand why Thorn Greystone wanted you dead. He laid out the first document. It was a geological survey dated March 15, 2017. The letterhead read, Montana Geological Services, official state document. 7 years ago, I was 21 years old, alpha of Shadow Peak Pack. We were small, only 93 wolves total. But we were prosperous, good land, clean water, no conflicts with neighboring packs. We lived quietly, peacefully. That March, a surveyor came through our territory, said he was updating maps for the state. Standard procedure. We let him work. 3 weeks later, I received this. The document was covered in technical language and contour maps, but one section was highlighted in yellow. She leaned forward, reading, Dark silver vein, estimated volume 47,000 cubic meters, estimated value $180,000. Warning, dark silver is a Class A toxic substance under federal EPA guidelines. Mining requires extensive federal approval and safety protocols. Contamination risk extreme. Exposure causes severe neurological damage in humans. Effects on werewolf population unknown but presumed catastrophic based on preliminary studies. Elowen read it twice trying to understand. Dark silver, I've never heard of it. Most wolves haven't. It's rare, only found in a few places in North America. Maybe a dozen deposits total. It's a mineral that forms when silver ore gets contaminated with mercury and arsenic during geological formation. To humans, it's just toxic, causes neurological damage, organ failure, Death within weeks of exposure. Kyle's voice went flat, emotionless. To wolves, it's much worse. It causes a kind of psychosis, extreme aggression, paranoia, loss of inhibition, loss of pack bonds. Wolves on dark silver will attack their own pack members, their own family, their own children. He laid out another document. Council meeting minutes from April 3rd, 2017. 1 week after I received that survey, Harrison Greystone Thorne's father requested a meeting with me. Just the two of us. Very friendly, very casual. He'd seen the survey results. The council had access to all geological data. He wanted to propose a partnership, joint venture. His pack would provide the mining equipment and expertise. My pack would get 30% of the profits. Seemed generous. But you said no, Elowen guessed. I said hell no. I showed him the warning, showed him the classification as Class A toxic, told him dark silver wasn't worth the risk, that no amount of money was worth poisoning our land and potentially our people. Told him I wouldn't let anyone mine it on Shadow Peak land. Kyle's expression turned grim. He smiled, shook my hand, said he understood, said he respected my decision. Then he left, and I thought that was the end of it. He laid out a series of documents, water analysis reports, all dated between May and June of 2017. Elowen's stomach turned as she read the numbers. Dark silver concentration, 47 parts per million. Lethal threshold for humans, a 5 ppm threshold for wolf psychosis based on preliminary animal studies, 8 pp. Someone poisoned your water supply, she whispered, the horror of it sinking in. Not someone, Harrison Greystone. Deliberately, systematically. Kyle pulled out another document, a topographical map with red lines drawn on it in marker. Arrows, X's marking locations. There's a dark silver deposit 6 miles upstream from Shadow Peak territory. Small one, maybe $5 million in value. Harrison started mining it illegally in May 2017. No permits, no safety protocols, no EPA oversight. Just hired human mercenaries who didn't ask questions and paid them cash. He redirected the mining runoff directly into the stream that fed into our water supply. Deliberately contaminated it. But that's genocide. That's mass murder. Murder of 87 wolves. Kyle interrupted, his voice still flat, but something burning in those gold eyes now. Rage. Carefully controlled, but there. Yes, it took 3 weeks. 3 weeks of watching my pack deteriorate. Of watching people I loved, people I'd known my entire life, people I'd sworn to protect, lose their minds. They started with mood swings, irritability, then aggression, fights breaking out over nothing, then violence, real violence. By the end, they were killing each other, mothers attacking their pups, mates tearing out each other's throats. He laid out the final documents, autopsy reports. Elowen didn't read the details. Couldn't. The photos attached were enough. Bodies torn apart, claw marks, bite marks, blood everywhere. I had to stop it. Had to end their suffering. 43 wolves I put down myself. Mercy killings, quick deaths. The kindest thing I could do for them at that point. The rest killed each other before I could reach them. Kyle looked at his hands. Large hands. Scarred hands. Hands that had killed people he loved. The council found me 3 days later. I was still in the territory, burying them. All of them, by hand. The dark silver was still in my system from the water I had drunk before I realized what was happening. Not enough to make me psychotic, my alpha metabolism processed it faster, but enough to show up in my blood work when they tested me. They blamed you, Elowen said quietly. Harrison Greystone paid them to blame me. $2.3 million to the council chair. Smaller amounts to the other council members. Enough to make them ignore the water reports when I presented them. Enough to make them accept a forced confession. Kyle touched the scars on his face gently. They tortured me for 3 days in a council facility. Silver claws heated until they glowed. Kept asking me why I did it, what made me snap. I told them the truth, showed them the evidence. They didn't want to hear it. He gathered up the documents and started putting them back in the box carefully. They exiled me instead of executing me because a public execution would have drawn attention, would have meant media coverage, federal investigations. Someone might have looked at the water reports, might have discovered the truth. Easier to make me disappear into the Blackwood. Let me become a ghost story. Elowen felt sick, not from the frostbite or the pneumonia or the physical trauma, from the truth, from understanding how deep the corruption went. And Harrison made $47 million from dark silver mining over the next 7 years. He's got 12 active mines now, all of them illegal. All of them poisoning someone's water supply somewhere. Thousands of wolves at risk across 3 states. Kyle looked at her with those gold eyes, and his son just became Alpha. Thorn isn't just continuing his father's work, he's expanding it. 14 new mines planned. Do you know where one of them is going to be? Elowen shook her head, afraid to know. Under Cascade Pack territory. Population 412, mostly families, lots of pups. In 2 years they'll start showing symptoms. In 3 years they'll be tearing each other apart. And the council will blame it on anything except the truth. And Thorn Greystone will make another $40 million while 400 wolves die screaming. Elowen wrapped her arms around herself, suddenly cold despite the fire. Everything she thought she knew was turning to ash. Why are you telling me all this? Because you asked who I am. Because you deserve to know the truth about the pact that cast you out. And because you're a witness to Thorn Greystone's cruelty, which makes you valuable, also dangerous to him. Kyle stood up, moved to the window. He rejected you publicly, banished you in front of 300 witnesses. If you died, it would be inconvenient but explainable. But if you survived, if you came back, if you told people how he treated you, I'm evidence that he's capable of murder. Elowen finished, understanding clicking into place. Even if it's just murder by exposure, it shows his character. Exactly. Kyle turned back to her. Which means when he figures out you didn't die in that blizzard, he'll send people to finish the job, to make sure there are no loose ends. How would he know I survived? I'm in the middle of the Blackwood. No pack wolves come here. But he has other resources. Kyle moved to a shelf, pulled down what looked like a small electronic device. Mercenaries, humans who work for money. They use technology, thermal imaging, drones, satellite feeds. If he's serious about making sure you're dead, and after what you've told me about that rejection, he'll find you within a week. Elowen felt the blood drain from her face. So what do? I can't shift. I can't fight. I'm useless. You learn, starting today. Kyle moved to a chest in the corner, pulled out clothes. Thermal shirt, cargo pants, thick wool socks. All far too large for her. First you heal, recover your strength. That'll take 3 or 4 days. Your body needs time to repair the damage. Then we start training. Combat, tactics, survival, weapons. By the time anyone comes looking for you, you'll be able to defend yourself, with or without a wolf. And then what? Elowen asked, clutching the clothes to her chest. I just hide in the Blackwood forever, live in exile like you. Kyle was quiet for a moment, considering. Then he said something that changed everything. Or you stop hiding, stop running. You go back to Silvercrest and you take what's yours. You take your dignity, your truth, your power. You expose Thorn for what he is, and you make the council answer for their crimes. What's mine? I don't have anything. They took everything. You have the truth. That's a weapon more powerful than claws or teeth. Kyle moved closer, crouched down so they were eye level. Thorn Greystone built his power on lies and his father's blood money, on the deaths of my pack, on corruption that goes to the highest levels. Expose him. Bring proof to the council. Force them to act. They won't listen to me. I'm nobody. You might be surprised what you are, Kyle said quietly, something strange in his voice. You were dying. Actually dead. Your heart stopped beating. I felt it stop under my hands. But you came back. That takes strength, real strength, the kind that has nothing to do with how big your wolf is. Elowen looked at him, really looked at him. This man who'd been falsely accused, tortured, exiled, who'd lost everything, who'd spent 7 years alone in the wilderness. And somehow, he'd stayed sane, stayed human, built a cabin, built a life, survived when most would have given up. If he could survive that, maybe she could survive this. "Why are you helping me?" she asked. "You don't know me. You don't owe me anything." Kyle's expression shifted, just slightly, something that might have been vulnerability. "Because when I found you in the snow, when I shifted to perform CPR, my wolf recognized something. A connection, a bond, the real thing." Elowen's breath caught in her throat. A mate bond. Yes, the word hung in the air between them, simple, final, undeniable. "But that's impossible," Elowen whispered. "Thorn said he felt nothing, that I was delusional, that the moon goddess made a mistake." "Thorn lied, or he was never your mate to begin with." Kyle's gold eyes held hers steady and certain. "Sometimes wolves feel a pull that isn't a mate bond. Sometimes it's attraction. Sometimes it's wishful thinking. Sometimes it's a warning disguised as interest. But what I felt when I found you, that wasn't ambiguous. That was recognition, soul deep, the real thing, the kind that happens once in 1,000 lifetimes." "I don't feel anything," Elowen said, and it came out defensive. "I mean, I feel something, but it's not. I don't know what a mate bond is supposed to feel like." "That's because your wolf is dormant, suppressed." Kyle stood up again. "Omega wolves can be suppressed by trauma, by chronic malnutrition, by psychological abuse. You've experienced all three. Your wolf isn't dead like those doctors told you. She's sleeping, waiting for the right conditions to wake up, waiting for safety. And you think being near you will wake her up?" "I think being near your true mate will, yes. Biology overrides suppression. The mate bond is one of the strongest forces in wolf genetics. Stronger than pack bonds, stronger than alpha commands. It can trigger shifts in wolves who've never shifted, can heal injuries that should be fatal, can even bring wolves back from the edge of going feral." Elowen looked down at her bandaged hands, trying to feel for the connection he was describing. There was something, that warmth in her chest, that sense of rightness she'd felt when she first woke up, but it was small, uncertain, nothing like the stories she'd heard. "How long?" she asked quietly. "How long what?" "How long until I know for sure, until the bond is clear?" Kyle shrugged. "Could be days, could be weeks. Depends on how deep the suppression goes, how much trauma your wolf has absorbed over the years. But we'll know when your wolf wakes up. Trust me, you'll know." He moved back to the kitchen area, started preparing more food with efficient movements. Eggs from chickens he kept in a coop out back, bread from a loaf he'd baked 2 days ago, coffee from beans he ground by hand. Elowen watched him work, watched the way his muscles moved under his shirt, the way his hands so large and scarred could be so gentle with the eggs, the way he moved around the small kitchen like he'd done this 1,000 times. A man who'd learned to take care of himself because he had no other choice. "You really think I can do this?" she asked. "Go back, face them, stand in front of Thorn and the council and accuse them of crimes with a wolfless Omega." "I think you're stronger than you know," Kyle said without turning around. "And I think Thorn Greystone is weaker than he pretends to be. Strong wolves don't need to publicly humiliate Omegas to prove their power. They just have it. The fact that he felt threatened enough by you to do what he did, that tells me something." "What?" "That he knew. On some level, he knew what you were, what you could become, what kind of threat you posed to his power structure, and he tried to destroy you before you figured it out yourself." Elowen pulled the oversized thermal shirt over her head. It hung on her like a dress. The cargo pants had to be rolled up 6 times at the ankles. But they were warm, warmer than anything she'd worn in years, and they smelled like cedar and that rain earth scent that was distinctly Kyle. She stood up carefully. Her legs shook, Her feet screamed in protest, but she stood. She didn't fall. She stood on her own 2 feet for the first time since the rejection. "Okay," she said, her voice stronger now. "Teach me. Show me how to fight. Show me how to survive. Because I'm done running. I'm done being afraid. I'm done letting people like Thorn Greystone tell me what I'm worth." Kyle looked over his shoulder at her. Something that might have been approval flickered in those gold eyes. "First you eat. You need to regain the weight you lost. Then you rest. Your body needs time to heal. Tomorrow we start training, but today you recover. How long do we have before the mercenaries come? If they're coming, they'll be here within the week, but I have sensors set up around the perimeter. Motion detectors, cameras. I'll know when they're coming long before they reach the cabin. We'll have time to prepare. You'd fight them for me when you don't even know me." Kyle turned fully now, and the look in his eyes was fierce. "You're my mate. That means I'd burn down the world to keep you safe. That means I'd fight an army to protect you. That's what the mate bond means. That's what you mean to me even though we just met. Biology doesn't care about those details. It just knows, and I know." Elowen felt tears prick her eyes. No one had ever talked about her like that. Like she mattered. Like she was worth protecting. "I don't know what to say." "You don't have to say anything. Just eat, rest, heal. Everything else we'll figure out together." The next 5 days passed in a carefully structured rhythm of recovery and revelation each day, bringing new changes, new understanding, new strength that Elowen had never known she possessed. Day 1 and 2. Physical rehabilitation dominated these first crucial days. Elowen could barely walk 20 feet. Without getting winded, her body protesting every movement with sharp stabs of pain. The hypothermia and cardiac arrest had taken more out of hers than she'd realized had damaged systems she didn't even know could be damaged. Her cardiovascular system was weakened. Her muscles had cannibalized themselves for energy during those hours in the cold. Her nervous system was still recovering from the trauma of death and resurrection. Kyle taught her exercises for the frostbite damage, gentle flexing of fingers and toes, controlled movements to maintain flexibility without causing more damage to the already traumatized tissue. He showed her how to massage the affected areas, to encourage blood flow, how to recognize signs of infection, how to monitor for complications. He also taught her about the Blackwood. They took slow walks around the clearing, Kyle pointing out plants and explaining their uses. Which plants were edible, even in winter, pine nuts from certain cone varieties, cattail roots that could be dug from near the frozen stream, rose hips that provided vitamin C. Which bark could be stripped and boiled for medicine that would help with pain and inflammation, willow bark for its natural aspirin properties, birch bark for its antimicrobial qualities. How to read animal tracks in the snow. The difference between deer and elk, deer tracks were narrower, more delicate, while elk tracks were broader and deeper. The difference between coyote and wolf coyotes had a more direct walking pattern, while wolves meandered more. The difference between predator and prey. Predators walked with confidence. Prey moved in erratic patterns, always alert. How to find north without a compass. By looking at moss growth on the north side of trees, by watching which way water flows in streams, by observing the angle of the sun at different times of day. How to predict weather. By watching the clouds. High wispy clouds meant fair weather, low dark clouds meant precipitation rapidly. Changing cloud patterns meant storms approaching. By feeling the pressure change in the air, dropping pressure meant storms rising. Pressure meant clearing weather. By reading the behavior of birds. Birds flying low meant storms. Birds singing actively meant fair weather approaching. "You're teaching me to be self-sufficient," she said on the afternoon of the second day while they walked slowly around the perimeter of the clearing, her steps still painful but growing stronger with each hour. "There's a difference between survival and self-sufficiency," Kyle corrected, keeping pace with her slow, careful steps, never showing impatience, even though he could have covered this distance in a fraction of the time. Survival is reactive. You're responding to immediate threats. You're doing whatever it takes to stay alive in the moment without thinking about tomorrow or next week or next year. Self-sufficiency is proactive. You're preparing for future challenges. You're building skills and knowledge that will serve you for years, maybe decades. You need to know you can take care of yourself, that you don't need a pack or an alpha or anyone else to keep you alive, that you have value independent of any group. That's what they took from you at Silvercrest, your sense of self-worth, your belief that you could exist on your own, your confidence that you deserved to exist at all. We're building it back, one lesson at a time, one skill at a time, one day at a time. Day 3. Sensory awakening began suddenly and dramatically. Elowen woke at dawn, startled by sounds that shouldn't have been possible to hear. Kyle moving around outside the cabin, his footsteps crunching on snow 60 feet away through thick log walls. Not just hearing him in a vague way, hearing everything with crystal clarity. The rhythm of his breathing, the creak of his joints as he moved, the rustle of his clothing against his skin. And not just Kyle, everything. The chickens in their coop behind the cabin scratching at the ground, buried under straw, their claws making tiny scraping sounds as they searched for seeds. A squirrel in the attic, directly above her head, making a nest for winter, dragging pine needles and moss into a corner. The wind, moving through pine needles 100 feet away, not just the general sound of wind through trees, but individual needles brushing against each other, each one making its own distinct sound. Is this normal? She asked over breakfast, her hands shaking as she held her coffee mug, overwhelmed by the sudden sensory input. Even the sound of her own voice was too loud in her ears. Kyle listened to her description carefully, really listened, his gold eyes focused and intent like he was cataloging every detail for future reference. Then he nodded slowly, something like excitement flickering in his normally stoic expression. Your wolf is starting to wake up. Senses sharpen first. That's always the first sign. Hearing, vision, smell, they all become superhuman. Then strength and speed and healing ability accelerate. Then the actual shift could be hours from now, could be days, could be weeks. There's no exact timeline. Every wolf is different. Every awakening is unique. But it's happening. She's waking up. You were never broken. You were just waiting. That afternoon, her sense of smell exploded, going from normal human levels to something that should have been impossible, something that belonged in a different species entirely. Suddenly, she could smell everything with overwhelming, almost painful clarity. The different types of wood burning in the fireplace, pine with its sharp, clean scent, cedar with its aromatic, almost medicinal quality, oak with its rich, earthy smell. Each distinct, each telling its own story about where it grew, how long it had dried, how hot it burned. The mineral content of the water from Kyle's well iron that left a slightly metallic tang, limestone that gave it a smooth, clean quality, something earthy and organic she couldn't name but recognized as wholesome, as safe, as pure. The scent of deer that had passed through the clearing 3 hours ago, their musks still lingering in the cold air like invisible footprints, along with the fierce scent that said they detected Kyle's presence and fled immediately. And Kyle's scent, it went from pleasant to overwhelming in the best possible way. Sandalwood and ozone and rain and something underneath that was just him, something uniquely his that she could never confuse with anyone else. Something that made her want to move closer even when he was right beside her. Something that made her wolf still sleeping but stirring now, stretching like someone waking from a long nap, testing her bonds purr with approval, with recognition, with certainty. That's the bond getting stronger as your wolf wakes, Kyle explained when she mentioned it, trying to keep her voice casual and failing miserably, her cheeks flushing with embarrassment. You're starting to recognize me on an instinctual level. Your wolf knows I'm your mate even if your human mind hasn't fully accepted it yet. Even if you can't feel the full bond yet. Even if you're still scared it's not real. Give it time. Trust the process. Trust yourself. Trust what your body is telling you. Because bodies don't lie the way minds do. Day 4. Physical changes manifested dramatically. Elowen woke up feeling like she had a fever, her skin flushed and burning, radiating heat that made the cabin feel like a sauna even though Kyle had let the fire burn down overnight. Her skin was hot to the touch, radiating warmth in a way that should have alarmed her, but somehow felt right, felt like something clicking into place. 101 degrees, according to Kyle's thermometer that he kept in his surprisingly comprehensive medical kit. But she didn't feel sick. She felt energized, alive, more awake than she'd ever been in her life, like she'd been sleeping for 21 years and was finally truly waking up. Kyle checked her lungs with a stethoscope he had in his medical kit, a relic from his time as Alpha, when he'd been responsible for pack health and had insisted on learning proper medical protocols. Listened to her heart with that same intense focus he brought to everything, counting beats, checking rhythm, listening for irregularities. Looked into her eyes with a pen light, checking pupil response, looking for signs of neurological damage. Not fever. Your body temperature is increasing naturally. Adult wolves run between 99 and 103 degrees Fahrenheit normally. 98.6 is human temperature. You've been running at 98.6 your whole life because your wolf was dormant, because your metabolism was human instead of wolf. She's waking up now. Your metabolism is changing, speeding up to wolf levels. Your body is preparing for the shift. Could be soon, could be days. But it's coming, I can feel it. My wolf can feel it. But that afternoon, Elowen noticed her eyes in the small mirror above Kyle's sink, a polished piece of metal that served as both shaving mirror and only vanity in the cabin. The brown was still there, the color she'd been born with, the color she'd seen every day for 21 years. But violet flecks were scattered through the iris now, not just one or two that could be dismissed as tricks of light. Dozens. Hundreds, like someone had taken a paintbrush loaded with violet paint and splattered color across her eyes in a deliberate pattern, creating something new, something that had never existed before. Violet, Kyle said when she showed him, turning her face toward the light so he could see better, and something in his voice made her look at him sharply. Wonder, maybe even awe, something she'd never heard from him before. That's unusual, very unusual. Most wolves have eye colors that match their fur or are standard wolf colors: brown gold, green amber, occasionally blue in northern breeds. Brown wolves have brown eyes. Gray wolves have gray or green. Black wolves have gold or amber. But violet. He trailed off, studying her eyes like they were a puzzle he needed to solve, like they held secrets written in a language he was just beginning to understand. Violet is rare. I've only seen it once before in a very old history book about the first packs, the original wolves who came before the territory system was established. The ones who lived 300-400 years ago, but it's not omega coloring. Omega's trend toward brown and gray earth tones, subtle colors. Violet is something else, something I'd need to research more thoroughly, something that might explain why Thorn was so threatened by you, why he felt the need to destroy you so publicly. Day 5, rest and recovery and revelation. Elowen's body needed time to adapt to the changes happening at a cellular level. Time to process the transformation beginning inside her. Time to adjust to systems that were being rebuilt from the ground up. She spent the day reading from Kyle's extensive collection, losing herself in books that opened up new worlds and challenged everything she'd been taught. Books about werewolf history that went back hundreds of years to times before the packs formed, before territories were established, before alphas and betas and omegas became rigid castes instead of fluid roles based on personality and circumstance. Pack law that seemed designed to benefit alphas at the expense of everyone else, creating a system that maintained power structures and prevented upward mobility, ensuring that those born omega would die omega regardless of their abilities or potential. The old legends about the first wolves, the ones who came before the packs, before the rules, before all the hierarchies that had been built to keep some wolves on top and others on the bottom. Stories of wolves who could command storms, who could heal with touch, who could run faster than wind, who lived for centuries. One particular book caught her attention, leather-bound, ancient, the pages yellowed and fragile. Legends of the Luna Supreme, the title read in faded gold lettering. She opened it carefully, afraid the pages might crumble in her hands. The text described white wolves. Luna Supreme, it called them. Born once every 120 years to lead the packs out of darkness, to unite fractured groups, to bring justice when corruption had taken root, to reset the balance when the scales had tipped too far toward injustice, to remind all wolves of what they could be, what they should be, what they'd forgotten in the centuries since the first packs formed. The book had a drawing, crude but powerful. A white wolf with violet eyes standing on a mountaintop, while other wolves, brown, black, grey, red, bowed before it. Not in submission, the text was careful to note. In recognition, in respect, in acknowledgement that something greater had arrived, something that transcended normal pack hierarchies, something that spoke directly to the wolf soul that existed before and beyond the human concepts of dominance and submission. The text described their powers. Biological authority over all wolves, regardless of rank, alphas, would submit. Without being able to help it, betas would follow. Without question, omegas would be elevated to their true potential. The ability to sense truth and lies. The power to heal emotional wounds as well as physical ones. And the gift of prophecy, though not in a clear, straightforward way, more like intuition amplified to supernatural levels. But most importantly, the Luna Supreme represented hope. Every century, when corruption and cruelty had spread through the packs like poison, when the strong had forgotten their duty to protect the weak, when alpha power had become tyranny instead of stewardship, that's when the Luna Supreme was born. A reminder, a correction, a return to what wolves were meant to be. She didn't mention it to Kyle. It seemed too fantastical, too impossible, too much like wishful thinking. She was just Elowen, nobody. A wolfless Omega who couldn't even shift until a few days ago. She couldn't be something out of legends, couldn't be something that only appeared once a century, couldn't be someone who changed the world. That wasn't her. That would never be her. Except a small voice in the back of her mind whispered, "What if it is? What if that's why Thorn was so threatened? What if that's why your wolf waited so long to emerge? What if everything that happened, the rejection, the exile, finding Kyle, what if it was all meant to happen exactly this way?" She shook her head, trying to dismiss the thought, but it lingered. Day 6. Combat training began in earnest. Elowen could walk normally now, though her feet still ached with every step, the frostbite damage a constant reminder of how close she'd come to death. The pain had faded to a manageable throb that she could ignore if she focused on something else, if she had a reason to push through it. Kyle declared her ready for basic self-defense training, though he warned her they were starting from absolute beginner level and would need to progress slowly to avoid injury. They started in the clearing in front of the cabin in the circle where he'd cleared away the snow down to bare packed earth. Snow cleared in a circle, about 40 feet across the perimeter marked with stones Kyle had placed deliberately to create a training ring. Perfect for training. Kyle demonstrated stances. First, how to stand to maintain balance against an attacker larger and stronger than you, keeping your center of gravity low knees. Slightly bent, weight distributed evenly. How to move to conserve energy because fights weren't about who was strongest, but who lasted longest, who could maintain technique when exhausted. How to fall without breaking bones, using rolls to absorb impact, protecting head and spine at all costs. How to get back up quickly, never staying down longer than necessary because down meant vulnerable. Then he taught her to hit properly. To use her whole body instead of just her arm, to understand that power came from the ground up, from legs through hips, through core, through shoulders, through arm, through fist. Most wolves rely on their shifted form for combat, he explained, showing her how to make a proper fist thumb outside, not inside, wrapped around the outside of the fingers to protect it from breaking wrist straight and locked to prevent sprains. Shift and fight. That's what we're taught from the moment we can understand. Use claws, use teeth, use our superior strength and speed and healing. But if you can't shift, or if you're caught in human form, or if you need to fight in a situation where shifting would draw attention, like in a human town or around humans who don't know what we are, you need to know how to fight as a human. And here's the thing, most people don't understand. Size doesn't matter as much as people think. It matters, yes. A larger person has advantages. But those advantages can be overcome. Speed matters more than size. Precision matters more than size. Knowing where to hit matters more than how hard you hit. A well-placed strike from someone small can do more damage than a wild, powerful swing from someone large. Technique beats strength. Always. Every time. He showed her the vulnerable points on a human body, using himself as a demonstration model, pointing to each location and explaining what would happen if struck properly. Throat crush, the trachea cut off air force them to focus on breathing instead of fighting possible death if hit hard enough. Eyes blind your opponent, force them to fight in darkness while you can see, create immediate panic and disorientation. Knees break their mobility, take away their ability to chase you or corner you, destroy their base of power. Solar plexus, knock the wind out of them. Create that terrible moment of not being able to breathe. Give yourself time to escape while they're gasping and panicking. Groin ovio universally effective, regardless of size difference or fighting experience, creates immediate incapacitation. Kidneys debilitating pain that makes it hard to focus on anything else, potential internal bleeding. Temples potential knockout. If you hit hard enough and at the right angle, potential death in extreme cases. You're not trying to overpower your opponent, he said, demonstrating each strike slowly and precisely, making sure she understood the mechanics before speed became a factor. In most cases, you can't. They're bigger, stronger, have more reach, have more experience. You're trying to disable them. Create an opening, hit hard, hit fast, hit where it counts, then run. Your goal is always escape, not victory. You don't need to win the fight. You just need to survive it. You need to create an opening and then take it immediately without hesitation. Pride doesn't matter. Looking tough doesn't matter. Winning doesn't matter. Living matters. That's the only thing that matters. Elowen practiced on a heavy bag he'd hung from a sturdy tree branch. Canvas filled with sand worn from years of use, the fabric soft in places, where Kael had struck it thousands of times harder in others, where the canvas was still relatively new. Her first few punches were pathetic. Weak, she pulled them at the last second, afraid of hurting her still healing hands, afraid of doing more damage to fingers that were just starting to regain full sensation. Harder, Kael said from behind her, his voice firm but not unkind, not mocking, not cruel like her trainers at Silvercrest had been when she tried to learn basic self-defense as a child. Commit to the strike. Half power hits do nothing except tell your opponent you're afraid. They encourage them to press the attack to be more aggressive. Make them afraid of you instead. Make them think twice about whether you're worth the trouble. She tried again, put her whole body into it like he'd shown her. Hip rotation generating power, shoulder drive adding force, follow through extending the impact. The impact jarred her arm all the way to her shoulder socket, but felt good, solid, real. The bag swung back on its rope, heavy and satisfying. Better, again, 50 times. Then we work on kicks. She hit it again and again and again. 50 times became 100 times as she found her rhythm, as muscle memory started to build, as her body began to understand the mechanics on an instinctual level rather than an intellectual one. Her arms were shaking and sweat was pouring down her face despite the cold. By the time Kael called a halt, her thermal shirt soaked through her, breathing heavy. Enough for today. You're building muscle memory. It takes time. It takes repetition. It takes thousands of strikes before it becomes automatic. Before you can do it without thinking, before your body knows what to do even when your mind is panicking. Tomorrow we'll do more. Rest now. Eat. Hydrate. Your body is working hard to heal and build strength simultaneously. Day 7 and 8, more combat training building on the foundation from day 6. Kicks front kick to the knee to break their stance and potentially shatter the kneecap side kick to the ribs to knock the wind out and possibly break ribs back kick if they grab you from behind to create distance and hit vulnerable areas. Blocks high block for overhead strikes, low block for kicks to the legs. Cross block for straight punches to the center line. Evasion and ducking under puncher weaving around strikes, creating distance through footwork using angles to make them miss while you set up counters. Kyle was patient but demanding. But he didn't accept excuses. Didn't let her quit when it hurt, when she was tired, when she wanted to give up. Didn't let her fall back on, "I'm just an omega," or "I'm not strong enough," or any of the other excuses she'd used her whole life to avoid trying things that scared her. He pushed her exactly hard enough to improve without injuring her, finding that perfect balance between challenge and safety that all good teachers understand instinctively. By the end of day 8, Elowen could hold her own in a basic sparring match against Kael when he was holding back significantly, when he was moving at maybe 20% of his actual speed and strength. She wasn't skilled, wasn't experienced, wouldn't win against anyone with real training, but she was competent. She could defend herself against an untrained opponent, maybe even a trained one if she got lucky, and if they underestimated her the way people always had. "You're a natural," Kyle said that evening as they sat by the fire, both exhausted from the day's training, muscles sore but satisfied bodies, pleasantly tired. "Good instincts, good reflexes. Your body knows how to move, even if your mind hasn't learned all the patterns yet. It's like you've been a fighter your whole life and just didn't know it, like it was always there waiting to be unlocked. When your wolf wakes up, when you can shift, when you have access to supernatural speed and strength and healing, you're going to be formidable. You're going to be dangerous in the best possible way. You're going to be exactly what this world needs." "If she wakes up," Elowen corrected quietly, still afraid to hope, still afraid to believe after a lifetime of disappointment. "When?" Kyle insisted, absolutely no doubt in his voice, no hesitation, no uncertainty. "Not if. I can feel her, getting closer to the surface every day, every hour. It's going to happen soon, very soon. Maybe tonight, maybe tomorrow, but soon. I'd bet my life on it." Day 9. Morning. The pain hit without warning, without mercy, without any chance to prepare or brace herself. Elowen woke to agony, unlike anything she'd ever experienced, worse than the rejection that had felt like her heart being ripped out, worse than the hypothermia that had felt like dying from the inside, sharper than the rejected bond, more intense than anything she'd thought was possible for a body to feel and survive. This was her body, tearing itself apart at a cellular level and rebuilding from the ground up. This was transformation. This was rebirth. This was dying and being reborn in the same agonizing moment. Sharp stabbing pain, deep in her bones, like they were being shattered with hammers and reformed into new shapes. Her spine felt like someone was taking a sledgehammer to it, smashing each vertebra individually before reassembling them in a new configuration that her body didn't understand yet. Her skull throbbed with pressure, building inside like her head was going to explode, like her brain was expanding beyond the capacity of her skull to contain it. Her fingers and toes cramped so hard she screamed tendons, pulling tight enough to snap muscles contracting until they felt like stone joints grinding against each other. She gasped, curled into a ball on the fur rug, tried to breathe through it but couldn't. Each breath was fire in her lungs. Each heartbeat sent waves of pain through her entire body, radiating from her chest to her extremities and back again. Kyle was beside her instantly, faster than should be possible even for a wolf moving with supernatural speed that suggested he'd been waiting for this, expecting it. It's starting, your wolf is coming. Finally, after 21 years, she's finally ready. It hurts, Elowen managed between gritted teeth, tears streaming down her face, body convulsing with pain, every muscle in her body tight as wire. I know. I remember my first shift. Every wolf remembers. It's the most painful thing you'll ever experience. It's going to hurt worse before it gets better. The first time is always the worst because your body doesn't know what it's doing, yet doesn't have the pathways built. But you can do this. You're strong enough. You've survived everything else. You'll survive this. He pulled the blankets off her in one smooth motion. Cool air hitting her overheated skin. Come on, outside. You can't shift in here. Not enough space. You need room. You need to be able to move when it happens, when your body starts changing. You could hurt yourself in here, could bring the whole cabin down. He half carried her to the front door, out into the cleared circle where they'd been training. The cold air hit her overheated skin and should have felt freezing, but didn't. Her body temperature was so high that the winter cold felt pleasant, refreshing welcome. Steam rose from her body like she was on fire internally, like her core temperature had spiked to dangerous levels. Her temperature had spiked to 103 degrees, maybe higher, high enough to cause brain damage in a human, but normal for a wolf in transformation. Kyle set her down gently in the center of the clearing, in the exact middle of the training ring, then stepped back to give her space. Started stripping off his own clothes without hesitation, without embarrassment, preparing to shift so he could guide her through this with both voice and presence. Don't fight it. Don't try to control it. Let her break free. It's the only way through. Fighting makes it worse, makes it last longer, makes the pain more intense. You have to surrender to it. Let it happen. The pain intensified, doubled, tripled, went beyond anything she thought was possible, beyond anything she'd believed a body could feel and remain conscious. Elowen screamed, the sound raw and animal, not human at all, echoing through the forest and sending birds fleeing from nearby trees. Her spine was reshaping. She could feel it, could feel each vertebra separating, multiplying. 33 bones becoming 51 to support a wolf's longer, more flexible back. Her rib cage expanding, ribs multiplying. 12 pairs becoming 13 to protect larger organs, to accommodate a different body structure. Her skull elongating jaw, pushing forward, teeth sharpening into fangs designed to tear meat from bone, to kill with a single bite to the throat. Through the pain, through the tears and the screaming and the feeling that she was being torn apart, she heard Kyle's voice, felt the massive presence of his wolf standing beside her black fur, close enough to touch, radiating heat and power and certainty. Gold eyes locked on hers with an intensity that somehow helped, that somehow grounded her, that somehow made the pain more bearable even though it didn't actually decrease. Let her out, Elowen. Stop holding on. Stop being afraid. Let go. Trust her. Trust yourself. Trust that you're strong enough to survive this. This is your birthright. This is what you were always meant to be. This is who you really are. Everything before this was just waiting. Just preparation. This is the truth. She let go. The pain reached a crescendo that felt like dying, like everything she'd ever been was being burned away in a white-hot fire, and then broke like a wave hitting shore. Her body exploded into change. Fur erupted from her skin in a wave of sensation that was pain and pleasure, and something beyond both, a wave of pure white. Pure unmarked white, like fresh snow, like moonlight, made solid like something pure and clean and new that had never existed before. Her hands become paws, fingers, elongating and reshaping, nails becoming claws. Her spine extended into a tail, vertebrae growing, extending behind her. Her senses, already sharp from days of awakening, became supernatural. She could smell everything within a mile, could catalog every scent, every creature, every plant, every piece of the forest. Hear every heartbeat distinguished between bird and squirrel and deer and rabbit. See in colors she'd never known existed wavelengths that human eyes couldn't process, the world exploding into a spectrum she couldn't have imagined. Then she was standing on 4 legs, shaking out her new coat, looking at the world through wolf eyes for the first time in her life, for the first time in 21 years, for the first time ever, because her wolf had never existed before. This moment had been waiting her entire life for this moment, for safety, for permission, for a mate who wouldn't hurt her. Kyle's wolf circled her slowly, assessing his gold eyes, cataloging every detail, checking for problems, looking for signs that the transformation hadn't gone correctly. Massive and black like a shadow given form, like darkness made solid. But she wasn't small. Wasn't the tiny Omega wolf she'd feared. She'd be the runt, the weak one, the failure everyone had always said she was. She was larger than any Omega should be. Larger than most betas. Almost alpha-sized at 430 pounds, which should have been impossible for someone with her genetics, for someone who'd been told her whole life she was weak and inferior. And her fur, her pure white fur, caught the morning sunlight and seemed to glow, seemed to radiate light, like she was made of moonbeams and starlight. Seemed to announce to the world that something different had arrived, something that hadn't been seen in over a century. Something that changed everything. Kyle's voice echoed in her mind through telepathy, the gift that allowed bonded wolves to communicate across distances, and through shifted forms, the gift that made pack coordination possible. White Wolf, Elowen, you're a white wolf, Luna Supreme, just like the legends, just like the prophecies. You're exactly what I thought you might be when I saw your violet eyes. You're what the packs have been waiting for. What they've needed for 100 years. What they've forgotten was even possible. She didn't understand what that meant yet. Her wolf didn't care about legends or prophecies or destiny or any of the human concepts that seemed so important when standing on 2 legs. Her wolf only cared about one thing. The massive black male standing in front of her. The one who smelled like home and safety and forever and mine. The one whose heartbeat matched hers. The one whose breath synchronized with hers. The one whose soul recognized hers from before they'd ever met, from before they'd been born, from before the universe began. Her wolf's voice, speaking for the first time in 21 years, speaking for the first time ever, echoed through both their minds with absolute certainty that could not be questioned or doubted or dismissed. Mate. And somewhere deep in the Blackwood forest, something ancient stirred. Something that had been waiting for over a century for a white wolf to be born. For the Luna Supreme to rise. For balance to be restored. The old wolves, the truly ancient ones who remembered what the world was like. Before the packs, before the territories, before the hierarchies, they felt it. They knew. The Luna had returned, and nothing would ever be the same. The wolves of North America had no idea how much everything was about to change, but they would learn. Soon, January 11th, Summit Day. Elowen stood before the mirror in Kyle's cabin, barely recognizing herself. The white dress fit perfectly. Her hair was styled in loose waves, minimal makeup, just enough to look polished. Her violet eyes needed no enhancement. They were striking on their own. Around her neck, a silver pendant. A white wolf howling at a full moon. Celeste had given it to her that morning. A Luna Supreme hasn't worn this in 100 years. It's yours now. Kyle stood behind her in a black suit. Fake security credentials clipped to his pocket. Gun hidden in a shoulder holster. He looked like every other hired guard. Invisible. You look like a queen, he said quietly. I feel like I'm going to throw up. Fear is normal. You're walking into a room full of predators who want you dead. You'd be crazy not to be scared. Are you scared? Terrified. But I'm more afraid of what happens if we don't do this. More afraid of living in a world where people like Thorn Greystone win. Celeste appeared with a folder. Thick, heavy. This is everything. When the moment comes, give this to the council chair. Make him look at it. Elowen took the folder. It felt like it weighed 100 pounds. The weight of 87 dead wolves. The weight of justice delayed for 7 years. "Let's go," she said. They drove in Kyle's truck, 93 miles from the Blackwood to Silvercrest territory. 2 hours and 10 minutes of silence. Elowen spent the time rehearsing what she'd say, how she'd say it. They arrived at 6:47 p.m. The summit started at 8. The Silvercrest pack house was lit up like a palace. Every window glowing, searchlights sweeping the grounds, guards everywhere. At least 100. Kyle pulled up to the main gate. A guard approached. "Credentials," the guard said. Kyle handed over their forged documents. Kyle Brennan, Sentinel Solutions, providing security for Luna Elena Thorne of Cascade Pack. The guard scanned the IDs, checked them against his list, frowned. "Elena Thorne, I don't see you on the guest list." Elowen leaned forward. Let the guard see her face, see her violet eyes. She didn't use her Luna voice, not yet, just spoke calmly, confidently. "I RSVP'd 3 weeks ago. Perhaps there was an administrative error." The guard stared at her eyes, couldn't look away. That was Luna power, not command, just presence that made wolves want to please. I'll call it in. One moment." He stepped away, spoke into his radio. Elowen held her breath. If this didn't work, they'd have to go to plan B, which was no plan at all. The guard came back. "My apologies, Luna Thorne. You're cleared. Someone will escort you to the main hall." They were in. A woman approached, 50s, professional suit. "Luna Thorne, I'm Margaret Wells' event coordinator. Welcome to Silvercrest. If you'll follow me, I'll show you to your seat." They followed her inside, through the main entrance, past the ballroom where Elowen had been humiliated 11 days ago. The memory burned, but she pushed it down, focused on the present. The summit was being held in the grand hall, bigger than the ballroom, stadium seating rising in tiers, a stage at the front with a podium, 200 alphas filling the seats, another 100 lunas, and betas scattered throughout, security lining the walls. Margaret led them to a seat in the third row, center section, good visibility. "The summit begins in 8 minutes. Can I get you anything?" "I'm fine, thank you." Elowen sat. Kyle took up position behind her. Security guard stands, hands clasped, eyes scanning. Margaret left. Elowen looked around, recognized faces. Alpha Harrison Greystone in the front row, looking older than she remembered, tired. Seraphine beside him, dressed in red, looking smug. And on the stage, reviewing notes at the podium, was Thorne. He looked exactly as she remembered. Tall, handsome, cold blue eyes. The picture of alpha perfection. Elowen's wolf growled. Wanted to shift, wanted to attack. Not yet, Elowen told her wolf. Soon, but not yet. At exactly 8 p.m. the lights dimmed. A spotlight hit the stage. Thorne stepped up to the podium. "Brothers and sisters," he began, his voice carried easily. "Welcome to the North American Council Summit. We gather tonight to discuss the future of our packs, to address challenges, to implement solutions." He paused. "For too long, we've allowed sentiment to override logic, allowed compassion to weaken our gene pool. We've protected the weak at the expense of the strong. But tonight that changes." Murmurs rippled through the crowd, some approving, some uncertain. "I propose Amendment 47 to the Council Charter. Mandatory genetic testing for all wolves. Those who fail to meet minimum strength standards will be sterilized. Those who pose a genetic risk will be removed from the population. Humanely, efficiently, for the good of all." The murmurs got louder. Arguments breaking out, some alphas standing to object. "This is eugenics," someone shouted from the back. "This is survival," Thorne shot back. "The human population is growing, 7 billion and counting. We're 2 million wolves worldwide. If we want to survive, we need to be strong, pure, perfect." He pulled up slides, statistics, graphs, all showing declining wolf populations, increasing human encroachment, pack conflicts. It was compelling, professional, designed to scare them into compliance. Elowen watched, waited, let him make his case, let him dig his own grave deeper. Then Thorn said the words she'd been waiting for. Those who oppose this are either weak themselves or too sentimental to make hard choices. Silvercrest has already begun implementation. 2 weeks ago, I eliminated a wolf who failed genetic standards. An Omega, wolfless, useless. I cast her out, made an example. That's leadership. That's strength. The room went quiet, uncomfortable quiet. This was it. This was the moment. Elowen stood, slowly. The spotlight wasn't on her, but when she stood, something changed. The air pressure shifted. Every wolf in the room felt it, felt the presence of something ancient. She didn't shout, didn't need to, she just spoke. And her Luna voice carried to every corner of the room. Impossible to ignore, impossible to resist. That Omega is here. 200 heads turned, 200 pairs of eyes locked onto her. The spotlight swung, caught her in its beam, white dress glowing, violet eyes burning. Thorn's face went white, then red. Elowen. Yes, she started walking down the aisle, toward the stage. Every step measured, confident. I'm Elowen Marlowe, the Omega you tried to kill, the wolf you called broken and worthless and weak. She reached the stage, climbed the steps, stood 5 feet from Thorn. I'm also a white wolf, a Luna Supreme, and I'm here to show this council who you really are. She turned to face the crowd, raised her voice, let her Luna authority flood every word. I command this council to hear me, to bear witness, to see the truth. 200 wolves sat down. Couldn't help it. The biological imperative was overwhelming. Even the ones standing sat. Even Thorn swayed on his feet. Elowen opened the folder, began laying documents on the podium, projected them on the screen behind her using the summit's AV system. 7 years ago, Harrison and Thorn Greystone discovered dark silver under Shadow Peak Pack territory. AlphaKing Ravencroft refused to mine it, so they poisoned his pack's water supply. 87 wolves died. They blamed Ravencroft, paid the council chair $2.3 million to convict him. She showed the evidence, water reports, financial records, testimonies. The council chair's face went ashen. Since then, they've operated 12 illegal mines, made $47 million, and they've planned 14 more, including one under Cascade Pack. In 2 years, 400 wolves will start dying, just like Shadow Peak. She showed more evidence, mine locations, projected casualties, medical reports from wolves already showing symptoms. Amendment 47 isn't about strength, it's about eliminating witnesses. Everyone who knows about the mines, everyone who's been damaged by dark silver exposure. Kill them, call it genetic purification, bury the evidence. The room erupted, shouting, accusations, alphas demanding answers, the council chair trying to restore order. Thorn just stood there, frozen, staring at Elowen like she was a ghost. You were supposed to die, he said quietly. Only she could hear him. I did die for 4 minutes and 47 seconds, but I came back. Elowen stepped closer. And now you're going to answer for what you've done. To me, to Shadow Peak, to every wolf your family has killed. You think they'll believe you? Thorn's smile was desperate. You're an Omega, a nobody. I'm a Luna Supreme. Elowen let her eyes glow brighter, let her aura expand. Every wolf in the room felt it, felt the weight of biological authority pressing down on them. And I command you to submit. Thorn's knees buckled, his wolf overriding his human will. He dropped, bared his throat, could not stop himself. The symbolism was perfect. The alpha who'd cast her out now kneeling before her. The council chair stood, old, grey-haired, shaking. This evidence, if it's true, we need to investigate. Immediately. It's true. Kyle stepped forward from his position at the back, removed his fake security badge. I'm Kyle Ravencroft, Alpha of Shadow Peak, wrongfully exiled. I have physical evidence, witnesses, everything you need. Celeste appeared from the crowd, moving confidently despite her blindness. And I am Celeste Whitmore, Oracles of the Blackwood. I have seen this corruption in my visions for 7 years, waiting for the white wolf to rise. She's risen. The question is whether you'll do your duty. The council chair looked at the evidence, at the crowd, at Thorn kneeling on the stage, at Elowen standing above him glowing with Luna authority. Thorn Greystone, Harrison Greystone, you are both under arrest. Charges: genocide, illegal mining conspiracy, attempted murder of a Luna Supreme. He gestured to guards. Silver restraints, essence dampeners. They will await trial. Guards swarmed the stage. Thorn tried to run, got 3 steps before Elowen's voice stopped him cold. Stay! He froze, every muscle locked. Luna command, absolute. They cuffed him, led him away. He was screaming, raging, promising revenge. But it sounded hollow, desperate, the sound of a man who knew he'd lost. Harrison was arrested in his seat. Seraphine tried to run, was tackled by security. But as guards grabbed her, Seraphine's voice cracked, not defiant, terrified. Please, you don't understand. My father owed them millions. Gambling debts. Harrison said he'd forgive the debt if I helped him. If I became Thorn's Luna, I had no choice. I never wanted any of this. The council chair paused, looked at her. You'll testify? Yes, everything. I'll tell you everything. Then you'll face reduced charges. 25 years instead of life. Take her. All 3 removed from the hall. The council chair turned to Elowen. Luna Supreme, this council owes you an apology and a debt. You've exposed corruption at the highest levels, saved potentially thousands of lives. What would you have us do? Elowen looked out at 200 alphas, all watching her, all waiting for her to speak. I want justice, real justice, a fair trial, public, transparent. I want every pack to see what happens when leaders betray their people. She paused. And I want reform. Amendment 47. I want the opposite. Protection for Omegas, for elderly wolves, for anyone deemed weak. Because strength isn't just physical, it's moral. It's choosing to protect the vulnerable, not eliminate them. The council chair nodded. We'll make it so. You have my word. And Kyle Ravencroft, his exile is lifted, his name cleared. Shadow Peak will be recognized as sovereign territory. He'll be compensated for 7 years of wrongful imprisonment. Agreed. Elowen stepped down, went to Kyle, let him pull her close. You did it, he whispered. You actually did it. We did it, she corrected. Together. The summit dissolved into chaos. Alphas demanding more information. Reporters being called. It would be a scandal for years, but Elowen didn't care. She'd done what she came to do. 3 months later, Elowen stood on the balcony of the Silvercrest Pack house. Except it wasn't called Silvercrest anymore. The council had renamed it Sanctuary of the North, a pack built on new principles: equality, justice, protection of the vulnerable. The changes had been dramatic. Dark silver mines shut down across 3 states. Land remediation began at every site. Omega housing renovated. Laws passed protecting the rights of every wolf regardless of rank. 47 Omegas had been freed from illegal labor contracts, given back pay, given real choices about their lives for the first time. Mrs. Judith had been appointed Omega Advocate, a paid position with real authority. She'd hired a staff of 6, was working on reforms across all North American packs. The population had grown. 346 refugees from other packs had joined Sanctuary, seeking the safety and equality it offered. And Elowen, she'd been recognized by the council as Luna Supreme, not alpha of any one pack, alpha of all packs, advisor, protector, the one wolves turned to when leadership failed. It was overwhelming, exhausting, but also deeply satisfying. Kyle came out onto the balcony, wrapped his arms around her waist, rested his chin on her shoulder. You okay? Yeah, just thinking about about how different things are. 3 months ago, I was dying in the snow, convinced I was worthless. Now I'm Luna Supreme, giving speeches to the council, changing laws. She turned in his arms. It's surreal. You earned it, every bit of it. Kyle kissed her forehead. You fought for it, bled for it. You deserve to enjoy the victory. What about you happy to have justice? I'm happy to have justice. The land is just land. Can't bring them back. His gold eyes were sad, but healing. But I can make sure it doesn't happen to anyone else. The council voted to make Shadow Peak a memorial ground. No mining, no development, just forest. Growing wild over the graves of the innocent. That's what they deserved. Below them, the pack was gathering for evening meal. Elowen could see them through the windows. Omegas and Alphas eating together, laughing. No hierarchy, just family. Come on, Kyle said. They're waiting for us. They went inside, down to the main hall. 200 wolves gathered. They cheered when Elowen entered. Not because she commanded it, because they wanted to. She sat at the head table, not because she was superior, because she was honored, respected, loved. Celeste was there, blind eyes somehow seeing everything. She raised the glass. To the white wolf, may she reign for 100 years. To the white wolf, the pack echoed. Elowen raised her own glass, but she changed the toast. To justice, to equality, to every wolf who's been told they're not enough. You are enough. You always were. And together we'll make sure no one forgets that. They drank, they ate, they celebrated. And somewhere in a silver-lined cell, wearing essence-dampening cuffs, unable to shift, Thorin Greystone sat in darkness. 2 months after his arrest, the trial had concluded. Public, transparent, the evidence overwhelming, the verdict unanimous. Harrison Greystone was executed for crimes against wolfkind. The sentence carried out publicly as a warning to any who might follow his path. Thorn received life imprisonment, no possibility of parole. The silver collar around his neck would never come off. He would never shift again, never feel his wolf. He would live out his days as what he'd always feared most weak. Seraphine, who had testified against both Greystones, provided details that secured their convictions. Her sentence 25 years. But she would serve it with the possibility of redemption. In her cell, she wrote letters of apology to every Omega she'd mocked. Most went unanswered, but some replied. Forgiveness was a long road, but it was a road she'd chosen to walk. In his cell, Thorn had nothing but time to remember. Remember the Omega in the grey dress, the one he'd called worthless, the one he'd thrown into a blizzard to die, the Omega who'd become a queen, the Omega who'd destroyed him. He'd thought weakness was genetic, that strength was measured in muscle and speed and dominance. He'd been wrong. True strength was getting back up when the world knocked you down. True strength was choosing kindness when cruelty would be easier. True strength was protecting others even when no one had protected you. Elowen Marlowe had that strength, had always had it. And Thorn Greystone would spend the rest of his life understanding exactly what he'd lost the night he rejected her. Justice, it turned out, tasted sweeter than revenge ever could. And in the grand hall of Sanctuary of the North, the white wolf raised her glass once more. To new beginnings, she said, and to the truth that no one is born broken. We're all exactly who we need to be. We just need someone to see it. The pack drank. The fire crackled. Outside, the Montana moon rose full and bright over the mountains. And deep in the Blackwood forest, where an Omega had once stumbled through snow, ready to die, new life was growing. Spring flowers pushing through the frozen earth. A reminder that even in the coldest winter, even in the darkest night, renewal was possible. The white wolf's reign had begun, and it would be a reign remembered for generations. Not for conquest, not for power, but for the simple radical idea that every wolf deserved dignity, deserved respect, deserved a chance to become who they truly were. That was the legacy Elowen Marlowe would leave, and it was more than enough.